Those of you who came a little bit late may have missed that we talked about how everybody's sick around us. Half of my family is sick, my parents sick. Sounds like some cold going around. Weird timing, mid-August, I don't know. Not COVID. So anyway, if you or your loved one is sick, you know what to do. We've been teaching you guys here again and again. We'll do it again when COVID gets a little bit closer. I'm not going to cover that. I don't think I'll have time to this today, but I will address questions that I've been bombarded lately, and I know it's repetition for some of you. If you already know the answers, that's fine. So number one, please do not get COVID vaccine right now, right? So it's completely useless. It's an outdated strain. Wait until new form comes out. If they followed what happened last year, it'll probably come out in late September. So we're probably 4 weeks out, somewhere in that range, maybe a little bit more. Do not combine COVID and flu at the same time. We talked about this. There's increased risk of stroke. So please separate shots at least by 2 weeks, preferably by 4 weeks, and don't get the flu shot early in the season because it's not needed. Flu rarely comes and starts before November. So if you get sometime in October or even late October, it's fine because the later you get your flu shot, the longer you will be covered. Flu coverage from the vaccine lasts only a couple of months. So if you get it earlier in the season, you're just not going to get covered to the end of the spring. And that is important because flu season sometimes starts late and runs late, just like what we had last year. Okay, so those are the two entries. Now, a couple of updates. First, we finally recorded peptides podcasts, thanks to Janet and Dr. Kosov, our AIMS medical director and executive director. So Steph will put link in there. It's now on it's on podcast. It's officially on Integrative Medicine podcasts, and I forgot if we have it on YouTube. I guess not. I guess we'll do that later. All right, but anyway, that's out. And I think you should all listen to this because peptides is a topic, of course, that's going to be gaining rapidly increased momentum. Everybody may have heard that HHS has announced an intention to legalize several peptides, including BPC 157 and a couple others, so that they are allowed to be formally compounded in the pharmacies. The process on this is kind of stalled. I think there was a recommendation, but I haven't seen movement on that. But for more details, again, you have this podcast, so I don't want to take more time on that. But of course, I welcome questions if anybody have on that topic. The second quick topic is calcium. So I recently finished a review of the paper that just came out, basically saying, yeah, calcium supplementation is getting more and more controversial. So in this one, basically, if you have a history of cardiovascular disease already, calcium supplementation significantly increased risk of heart attacks and strokes. So concerning, since so many people taking calcium and so many people already have a heart disease. So how should we take this? So the video describes, so I just put that in the chat, this YouTube video describes a bit more details, and I will just summarize it with two cardinal rules that I want everybody to remember about calcium. Rule number one, no one to take more than 500 milligrams of calcium in any one setting, better not even 400. So take anywhere between 2 to 400 milligrams of calcium. And there is absolutely no reason for anybody to take doses of calcium together. So if you think, oh, somebody told me to take 1,200 milligrams of calcium, I'm not going to argue whether that's right or wrong. There's a whole separate long conversation about this topic, how much exact calcium should each person take. And, of course, we eat calcium, right? And we eat a lot of calcium with the food. The video doesn't discuss this in great detail, but there's a couple of points about that. But you absolutely don't need to take that 1,200 milligrams in one sitting, and the data on the harm of that seems to be increasing. So don't do that. And the second thing, look out for calcium that is in an organic types of form. So not the citrate, look for chelated calcium would be the best, or when there is a mix of various organic forms of calcium. So, people ask me always, well, what about like those, from shells, the calcium from shells? Well, often it's a commercial gimmick. You have to be very careful. It shouldn't matter whether calcium is synthetic or coming from the shell if it's inorganic, it's not going to be absorbed as good. And there, hence the problem. It seems that there's at least theoretical concern that the inorganic forms of calcium tend to get deposited into the walls of arteries more, and that's the reason for the increased risk of heart attacks. So the topic is very controversial at its core, mostly because there's studies showing all whichever way you want. This is just the newest study that's reviewed in this YouTube video that's basically having a little bit better format. It was controlled a little bit better, even though it was retrospective, and it was pretty sizable. I mean, there was over 30,000 people who were analyzed. It's a pretty large cohort. So, in short, try to get chelated organic forms, try to eat as much calcium as possible, and split it up. And yes, vitamin D supplementation must come with the calcium. Very good point. And vitamin D supplementation will increase calcium level. That's not what you worry about because serum circulating level of calcium is not necessarily what is linked to the increased risk of heart attacks. So Randall, you don't have to really worry about that part. But yeah, vitamin D, the supplementation with calcium is required. It seems to be helping. It causes less risk. In fact, in this study, women who were taking vitamin D with calcium did not have a lot of increased risk. Only men did. But everybody who was taking calcium without vitamin D had a significantly higher risk of heart disease or second heart events, so heart attacks and strokes. All right, that is all I have for you. So let's do 7 minutes of Q&A before we hand it over to Tosin. Oh, and Steph, we need to make the vote, right? Do you want to do it now
Yes.
what are we gonna
I
do?
was just
Yeah.
gonna ask everyone quickly to just type yes or no um, in honor of Labor Day. We we were planning to meet, but if everyone would prefer to have the week off, we can do that as well. So this is for September 4th, Friday. If you'd like to still meet, just type yes. If you prefer not to, please type no.
And I don't worry, guys. I'll catch up with the questions. Okay, yes, yes. All right. Okay. One person, one vote. Okay. Well, that's everybody's yeses. All right. I guess we're having it. Okay. Oh, no, not a single no. How are you guys? Oh, thanks, Tom. No, it's okay. No, no, I'm semi-laughing. All right, I think there's an overwhelming majority. Those of you obviously who wants to skip, you guys skip. We'll record it as usual. Make sure that everybody can review it if you want. Okay, let's go back to questions, right? Steph, I think it's pretty conclusive.
Yes, so we'll meet as planned on September 4th, and then we'll share the recording for those who are not able to attend.
Jennifer, I don't know. I think you were frozen. I think we're okay. Unless you meant something else there with a question, but okay. All right, so vitamin D, I think I answered that question. So let me just cut. Okay. Yeah, so Linda, great question. Yeah, so you have to take D together at the same time. Now, if you're my patient and you're taking one of my favorite bone supportive products, Osteoprime Ultra, you don't need to worry. Each tablet of Osteoprime Ultra contains both calcium and vitamin D and enough vitamin D to absorb that calcium well. So you don't need to worry about it. But if you're taking separate calcium, yes, it's really strongly recommended that you take it together with small dose of vitamin D. You don't have to take massive doses. So if you're taking a 5,000 unit of vitamin D, you don't need to take that exactly with calcium. I mean, you can, of course, but you don't have to. So, but when you do take calcium, you need to take at least 100 or 200 units so that absorption is optimized. Great question at the same time. All right, on dates on cyclosporiasis. Well, it's still here. We talked about this a little bit last week. I didn't really look for more new updates, but it's still circulating. I still saw some news yesterday saying, the numbers are still there. So wash your vegetables, what can I tell you? And if you're too concerned, cook them. That should do it. Okay, can you please repost peptides link for those who came late? Yeah, I can definitely do that. Stuff. I guess I'm doing it since. Oops. Copying. All right.
I just put it in the
You got
chat
it.
again. It's
Okay.
there.
Here too,
It's
just
in a Apple Podcast.
yeah. And I think we're kind of. Oh no, it's also on YouTube, right? Oh no, that's beating heart. Yeah, we'll get it on YouTube, you guys. I think I'm just procrastinating, or maybe I didn't get a file. I don't know, one or the other. We'll get it fixed and worked. Okay. Deserve time off. I'm taking time off next week. I'll be here next Friday, but I'll come back after. All right. Any other questions? We still have a couple of minutes, which I'm happy to yield to Tosin. That's not a problem. But those of you who haven't heard this, um, Tosin has been she worked at Center for Integrative Medicine for several years when I just started. We were just before we started, we were just ruminating on everything, on old good days before the pandemic and before. And yeah, so it's so exciting to see that the people who worked with us are now moving and shaking this world, making it a little bit healthier, one patient at a time. So that's all we can do. All right. So with that, I don't see any more questions. Tosin, it's so wonderful to have you here. It's been a while. So
Yeah,
thank you.
thank you. I'm going to be sharing my screen. I do have a visual aid and we have an activity as well. So let me share my screen. Let's rate this one. All right. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So thank you so much for having me, Dr. Kogan. It's exciting to be back home. I've been at CIM for, I don't think it was a long time, for like maybe 6 years. I was an employee here. So it feels very great to be back. And today's topic is something that I feel is kind of connected to what you were discussing in the meeting earlier, vitamin C, vitamin D, but probably in the form of food. So the topic today is longevity and you, nourish your mind, and we're going to discuss the connection between food, stress, and mindful living. So before we get started, I don't know if you have a snack in your closet, if you have an apple or in your fridge or any type of your favorite food or even a beverage, if you can just grab it because we're going to do an exercise regarding that favorite drink or fruit or snack or even meal. And then so if you, when you're all ready, when you got your item, your food item or snack item or beverage, then we're going to start with some statistics and then we're going to dive into what we're going to discuss today. Okay, so thumbs up. Is everyone ready? Okay. All right, so just a little bit about me. The reason why I love the topic on food, nutrition, dietetics is because when I was working at CIM, I saw so many people get healed by just changing their diet, just changing what they put into their bodies. And then me, a testimonial of my own self, just changing what I put into my body helped with a lot of my diagnosis. And, during a period of time when I was working at CIM, I was under a lot of stress, but because I was feeding my body with premium fuel, I was able to function on a high level. So I'm going to start off with this, and I want it to be interactive as well. So before we do talk about longevity, I want to start off with something that shows just how connected our food, stress, and mind really are, because right now a lot of people are stressed out. So according to the American Psychological Association, 38% of adults reported overeating or just eating unhealthy foods because of stress. And among those adults, nearly half of them said that they did this at least once a week. And then I just want you to think about this. For many of us, eating isn't always happening because the body is physically hungry, but sometimes we're just eating because we're stressed, we're tired, or, a lot of times we're just overwhelmed. So we're simply just trying to feel better. And I know there's a lot of diets now that focus on low carb, high protein, but a lot of you already know that our brain naturally metabolizes carbohydrates. So if you're not eating enough carbohydrates, and you're under a lot of stress, your body needs more carbohydrates to process. So now that's why people experience brain fog, etc. So there is a physiology behind this. So when we're under a lot of chronic stress, our bodies can have prolonged exposure to cortisol. I know our favorite C word, and that's one of the major stress hormones, and it can influence our appetite. and it increases our cravings, and particularly for foods that are higher in sugar, fats, and calories. So I'm just curious, what beverage or food or snack did you all pick? If anybody can participate.
I
Does
got
anybody?
I gotta like fruit.
Oh, okay, okay. Of course, you have something healthy. Okay, that's awesome. That's awesome. So fruit. Okay, that's awesome. So over here on this slide here, what does longevity mean to you? I feel like a lot of times when people think about longevity, they just feel like being a centennial, like, oh yeah, I want to be like the people of the Blue Nile regions of the world that live up to 120 years old. These are where they have the most centennials in the world. But longevity isn't only about how long you live, it's about the quality, like your energy, your memory, still having a purpose post-retirement, how you're moving, how independent you are, and the connection you have with other people. So that's really, really important. So, one thing about stress is that I always tell people there's an acronym that I use, and it's called SENSE. So, we have five senses, but the sixth sense stands for S, which is sleep, and we'll talk about that. E, is exercise, N is nutrition, the other S is stress management, and the last E is enjoy life. If one or the other is not in equilibrium, something is going to suffer. So, for instance, I see a lot of times people say, oh, I'm eating clean and I'm exercising, but they're not sleeping and they don't have good quality of sleep. So then I say you might as well eat a donut because you're not sleeping enough. And the analogy I always use is when your cell phone goes to 15%, it already dims down. So a lot of people are operating on 15%, 5 to 50% of cell phone battery. So if you're operating on that, yeah, you're still functioning, but not at the best capacity. So we're going to bring mindfulness into this. So this is where mindfulness is really powerful. So mindfulness gives us an opportunity to create a little space between what we're feeling and what we automatically do. And it allows us to ask, am I physically hungry? Am I stressed? Am I tired? Am I thirsty? Or do I need something other than food right now? So I know for me, sometimes I eat out of boredom or I eat to chew so that I can stay awake because I have like a lot of late nights. So I'm just curious for our participation with the item that you looked at, this part of our mindfulness activity, is what made you choose that food? Was it for pleasure? Did you actually sit down and think about it? Like, okay, this is going to give me the nutrients. Is it nutrient dense? Is it going to give me the energy I need? Or you just grab something because you feel like, okay, this is for pleasure. I don't know if you want to participate.
Green tea.
Green tea, perfect. See, I like that you chose green tea. Like if I chose green tea, I would know for one, let's say I'm feeling a little bit tired. I know that the green tea will help me stay awake. I know the green tea is good for my digestion and my cells. So that just shows to me that when you chose your green tea, it was a mindful thought process. Like I'm drinking this green tea and probably also, you like the taste of it. So it's a win-win situation, something that gives you joy, but it's also beneficial to your body. So for your future self, this is just about mindful eating. This is one thing you have to do each time when you're about to put something in your mouth or think about it. What do you want your future self to feel like? What is one thing you hope you'll still be able to do at 80, 90, 100? Because people are living a lot longer. Traveling. Would you be able to travel, still be able to dance, exercise, still enjoy times with your family, think clearly, still live independently and enjoy life? So this is one thing I think about. I know that's a lot to think about before you eat something, but so far I see Dr. Kogan got a fruit, someone got green tea. So I feel like you're already in this space thinking about the future. So. So now there's different pillars of longevity because right now I know that a lot of times when I ask people what does longevity mean to them, it's usually one dimensional. They're just thinking, oh yeah, I'm gonna live to 85, 90, 100. But this is just to even expose you to what longevity truly is. It's multidimensional. It's mindfulness. Of course, you all know that in this space, preventative healthcare, I feel like integrative medicine is a combination of the collectivistic, holistic medicine and preventative healthcare, connection and purpose. I mean, in the United States, we have a very individualistic culture in comparison to, a lot of other countries like, Nigeria. So it's like connecting with others and living longer. And then managing your stress levels, even under pressure. I feel like there's always going to be something that brings stress to us. So deep breathing exercises, taking long walks, grounding, and then forest bathing. And these are just terms that I'm mentioning. Grounding, taking off your feet and connecting mind, body, and soul to the earth, taking off your shoes and walking on grass barefooted. That's the whole grounding exercise. There's so much studies on that. It shows it lowers your cortisol levels, allows you to connect your mind and body to the earth. And then forest bathing, finding a place that has a lot of trees and just walking through it, that helps with mental health. So this is just all pillars of longevity. So food is more than calories. Um, did anybody think of calories when they grab their snack? Did anyone? I know that the green tea is 0 calories. And Dr. Kogan, what about yours? Yours is not even a package, so
No, it's sweet, so there's sugar in there, so there
other
probably some
sugar.
calories.
Does anybody else have any other snacks that they have? No. Okay. Well, so these are some things you think about, when it comes to food. And one cheat sheet that I always tell people, and now you're going to look at food differently, is that usually the food that you eat that's not packaged is communicating with you. So for instance, now, like if you eat a tomato, when you cut it in half, it looks like the chambers of the heart. And there's studies on PubMed that show that tomatoes are good for your heart. Beets, when you blend it in a smoothie or if you juice it, it actually is the actual color of blood. And there's studies that show the nitrate gases in beets actually expand your arterioles. And people that are on blood pressure meds, we usually say don't drink the beet juice and take your blood pressure meds at the same time because it's basically overdose because beets actually lower your blood pressure. And then mangoes, they look like your ovaries, helps with women's health. And then walnuts, looks like the brain and it helps people that either have Alzheimer's or any type of neurodegenerative diseases, either slow the onset or manage their symptoms. So it's like now when you look at food, natural foods, you'll be like, now you're just like, what does this look like? And how does it help me? Berries, etc. But there was a recent recall on berries, so that's a whole nother story. But this is just showing different foods you can eat, to help with your longevity. That's part of longevity. So, are you actually hungry? So, this is just a few more slides before we do our exercise. Are you actually hungry? A lot of times people are not mindful when they eat, so we're not actually hungry. We're eating out of boredom, going to the vending machine, grabbing a snack. But are you actually hungry? A lot of times you're actually not hungry. So now we're going to go into our exercise. And I love acronyms the same way I talked about SENSE earlier. These are just easy ways to remember. SENSE stand for sleep, exercise, nutrition, stress management, and enjoy life. That's all you need for your sixth sense to be in equilibrium. This exercise, the acronym is called PAUSE. So now I want you to all take your food or beverage and pause. The P stands for to slow down and become present. I know this is a lot to deal with if you're going out to eat with your friends or family, but this exercise actually works for mindful eating. So pause, slow down, and become present. And the reason this is important is a lot of times in the busy hustle and bustle, and I'll say of the East Coast, because I lived in the Midwest for about maybe 6 or 7 years of my life, and life is a bit slower there. On the East Coast, the hustle and bustle of life, people are usually eating on the metro, eating while working, eating while watching TV, eating while doing something else. Pausing and slow down and being present. So now you're all present in this moment, okay? And you have your food or beverage. Then assess, what am I experiencing? So a lot of times when I go in my fridge, and that's why I said pick any item based on the item you have now. If you're in a rush, you're probably most likely going to pick something you don't have to cook. And then also something that if you don't have like a fruit like Dr. Kogan in your fridge, you'll go and pick something that's packaged, something that's easy, accessible. So assess. So what thing you want to do is to make sure that you always have something like produce or something that's healthy that you can assess it quickly without having to cook. So what am I experiencing? Am I stressed out? Then you have to pause. What am I actually in the mood for? And why am I in the mood for something like a donut or fries under stress? The U is for understand. What does my body or mind need? So I'm going to give you a fun fact here or a fact here. A lot of times when people are under stress, they'll grab a donut or a heavy carb because I mentioned earlier when people are under a lot of stress, the brain already naturally metabolizes carbohydrates. And then you grab that donut because not only do you want the comfort, you also need the carbs. And now you're just having this carb overload of the calorie dense carbohydrates versus the non-mindful food, which is nutrient dense. So I don't know if anybody wants to participate. Don't, and no shame here on what it has anybody grabbed a snack like chips or something that's not a fruit or vegetable or green tea,
Cracker.
crackers. Okay, and you probably grab the crackers because it's something that's easy to grab, etc. And then did when you grab the crackers and you select it, you probably chose intentionally because it was spot on. It was like grab something quick before coming in here today. You didn't know I was going to ask you to grab a snack or a beverage or a meal. So the selection is for S. And then finally, eat and experience. Slow down and experience your meal. A lot of times people will literally gobble up a whole meal in like 5 minutes. And that's why people are like, oh, there's all these issues with gut health and digestion. Not only are we not chewing our food properly, we're rushing and we're not being mindful of what we're putting into our bodies. So this acronym here, the pause method, is to pause, assess, understand, select, eat, and experience. So now I want you to all like look at your food or beverage. And now I want you to think about the color of it, the texture of it. I know this is like a lot to do with like food and just like it's a lot to think when you're in a rush. Think about the texture. Are you a texture person? I know a lot of children, when they choose a snack, they don't like their foods to touch. Are you still like that as an adult? Think about the color of it. Is it appealing? Touch it, the shape of it. Is it gushy? Is it crunchy? So in this moment, just for like the next 30 seconds, I want you to observe what you selected and just like feel it, touch it. You can even smell it. And then I want like just a few people to tell me like what they observed about the snack or beverage that they chose. And while you're doing that observation, this is more of the acronym. Were you hungry? Think of these are some questions, follow-up questions you want to ask yourself. Were you hungry when you chose your snack or beverage? Are you under a lot of stress? Are you feeling tired? So, like for instance, my guess would be that the person that selected green tea, usually roughly around 2 to 4 p.m., this is when people usually feel the most tired in the middle of a workday. So, were you tired? If you chose water like me, were you thirsty? Or if you chose the crackers, were you bored? Or if you chose chocolate cake, were you feeling emotional? And yes, sometimes the answer really is the cake. So not, food shaming anything, sometimes you may need the chocolate. And there is studies that show that dark chocolate specifically has magnesium that helps with muscle relaxation, also helps with muscle memory, and also helps to loosen weak muscles, and also is good for your brain, and also helps with sleep. And I know one thing that in CIM that always people would always take if they had trouble sleeping is magnesium glycinate. I know that was one big one from Thorne Research Laboratories. I don't know if you still carry Thorne Research Laboratories, but I know that was a brand that there was a lot of studies on it. So it was a brand of supplements that was highly reputable, at least in the integrative world. So the U is, what do I actually need? So now, in the presence of you observing your food and your beverage, does anybody want to volunteer and tell me, is there something you noticed about your food or snack or beverage that you've never noticed before? I mean, I can participate. So for me, mine, I selected water. One thing I noticed is that I prefer warm water over cold water when I'm not exercising. That's something I wouldn't have noticed before. I also noticed that the water was still and had a couple of bubbles in it. And just observing the water, I noticed also that I didn't feel my cup up all the way up to the top. I usually fill my cup in the middle. So that was another observation. I did notice that the water was very clear and just very satisfying to look at. So it's like this is things that are calming down your nervous system, just observing the food and looking at it and being mindful that, oh my gosh, I'm putting this into my body and it's premium fuel. So one analogy that I always use in mindful eating is when you put gasoline into your vehicle. So there's different levels of gas. You know, there's the regular gas, and then there's the premium fuel, and then there's diesel. But you know, your regular vehicle doesn't need diesel, but like the, tractor trailer trucks, they need diesel. So when you put premium gas, and I know you're probably going to look it up afterwards, the longevity of the car lasts longer because that's a quality gas. So look at it as a nutrient-dense food as premium fuel, so you're able to have higher performance level versus caloric-dense food. So, but once in a while, you can have those surplus days where you have the food that you actually like, maybe if it's a cake or birthday cake, etc. So, what I actually need versus am I just grabbing on the go? So, select rule is the rainbow. Every one thing in the field of dietetics, every color represents a different phytonutrient. So you have the reds, which are like the lycopenes, the whites, which are the cacheins, and it's like every color represents something it does in the body and or some the functionality or in the brain or in your bloodstream. So I just curious, what colors foods did you guys pick? Does anybody have like anything from the cyanines, which is like the blueberries or purple cabbage? No? And then, okay, what color are your crackers?
It is just beige or sort of golden. Golden round is the color.
Okay, golden round. And is it when you grab the crackers, was it something because you wanted to have like just is it like wheat thins or
Oh,
is it?
it's like Ritz. And and
Oh,
frankly,
the Ritz crackers. Are you eating it with like any type of like a spread or like a cheese or
no, just and I have to say it was in easy reach because I had it here just about.
yes, yes. So the S says, okay, okay, that's perfect. So,
And I
you know,
feel guilty. I do best. I don't get them all the time. If I have them here, I tend to eat them. So I do better not having them. Because I don't think
yes,
they're.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Like one of my weaknesses is potato chips. So I usually my alternative is popcorn because at least I know with popcorn it's, a bit healthier. It's not high in calories, and it's just an easy grab and go like regular plain popcorn that I can eat. And the chips aren't bad. It's just they just add so many oils and salts and sodium. So I does, it's a quick grab, but this just shows like, the selections we pick and the access to it. So eating the crackers once in a while isn't bad, but it's like now that you're observing it, like, is there things that you notice about the crackers that you've never noticed before?
I
Like you
don't,
said
it's not a very complicated thing.
Like for instance, like looking at this here, like just looking at the broccoli and then looking at the florets. So like, oh wow, like it looks like a tree. And then looking like at the avocado and the spinach. So this helps people to slow down because usually when people eat so fast, it takes the brain 30 minutes to actually know that it's full. So when people are eating at such a fast rate, that's why sometimes, for Thanksgiving, people are excited, you're with family and friends, and you eat so much and so fast, and you're like, after 30 minutes, you're like, wait a minute, I'm excessively full. It's because it's the brain and the stomach catching up with each other. So this is why, it's slowing down and, mindful selection. So this is what I was talking about here. So the E for pause is eat and experience. So when you looked at your food, what did you notice? So when I look at this plate here, I noticed there's different colors here. There's like a red, a green, a brown, and this is like a rice, like a orange rice. Smell the aromas. Because usually from a mile away, you can smell whether there's something cooking or baking. What did you notice about the smell of, your food? So like green tea, you can smell the herbs. For the crackers, you might, smell like a little bit of the crisp of the salt. Or if you got like a sweet beverage, you can smell it. So the taste, how is it? Is it bitter? Is it savory? Is it sweet? So this is just some things you'll be thinking about in your mind as you're experiencing the food. Was it crunchy? Was it smooth? Was it soft? Was it chewy? One thing about me is I love peanut butter, but I'm a texture person. I don't like bits and pieces of things. So like when I drink orange juice, I don't like the pulp. This is what I love about the juicing. That's why I got so into juicing is that juices, they have the nutrients and it has the water of the fruit or vegetable, but there's not bits and pieces in it. And then with peanut butter, I like smooth over over crunchy. And I know some people prefer crunchy over smooth, but depending on your texture preference. And then notice how does your body respond? So a lot of times people don't pay attention to how their body responds. So a lot of times as a dietitian, when I have these food demos, etc., people eat like a lot of food, they enjoy the food. And there was one time that a lady came and she told me, she said, my hands and feet are swelling up that she realized how her body was responding to the excess sodium in all the foods that she ate that day. So it's like, sometimes people don't realize like this certain food makes me bloated. This certain food makes me have reflux. This certain food makes me feel sharp. One thing that I started doing is that every time I eat a certain food, I ask myself, how do I respond to this? Does it make me happy? Does it give me a memory of something? Because one thing about food is that a lot of times with a lot of the clients that I have, if I give them a meal plan and if it's not relative to their culture, their tradition, or what they already eat, the prognosis is negative. They're not going to follow the plan. But if the food that I recommend is culturally sensitive, but also helps in their healing process, they're more likely to do it. So what do I mean by this? So now, okay, how is the person responding? And are they satisfied? Because food is more than just medicine. Food is culture, food is tradition, and food is memory. A lot of times when you eat a certain food, like Thanksgiving traditions, it's a recipe that's passed down from your great, 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 great grandmother. So now, as a Nigerian, one of our staple dishes is pounded yam, which is like kind of like a sweet potato, or it looks like mashed potatoes, right? But it's not mashed potatoes, yam, and egusi, which looks kind of like spinach, right? And for a lot of people in my culture, they're diabetics and they have hypertension, so heavy on the cardiometabolic diseases, right? So now when they eat this pounded yam, they it spikes their insulin because the yam, that carbohydrate from the yam, that's what their body recognizes as sugar. So now what do we do? Do I tell them, okay, just eat broccoli when your family's eating these culturally delicious foods that brings memory of traditions? Or do I recommend them something that's similar but will help them? So now what I do is I recommend something that's similar and that would help them. So this ties into satisfaction. Do you really enjoy it? Make sure when you eat this delicious food or whatever snack you picked, you really enjoy it, but also nutritious. So what I did is I gave them a recipe. It's called beets pounded yam. The recipe for this is literally beets, beet juice, and oatmeal. So they would blend the dry oats and they'll mix the beet juice with it, and it has the same consistency as the yam, but the body recognizes it as beets and oatmeal. So now they're enjoying this healthy, delicious meal that is exactly like the Nigerian meal, but now the beets help with hypertension and helps with blood sugar regulation. So do you enjoy it? So yes, eat healthy, but also actually enjoy it. So this is just a little thing here. We didn't survive the food. We changed our relationship with the experience. So now pause isn't a diet because I don't like the word diet because diet automatically gives you stress. So with the pause, just create a space, develop the awareness, build body literacy, encourage intentional nourishment, like I mentioned with the Nigerian meal. And it helps you also become present. So you're present in the moment. And this is probably the most you've ever thought about a food item. And I don't know if you're sipping on it or you eat it now, or if you're eating it right now. This is probably the most you've ever thought about when you chose a snack. So pause before you say yes to everything, sacrificing another's night's sleep, ignoring need for rest, sitting for hours, automatically reaching for another cup of coffee, and responding from stress. So this is pause before you do the following things. So for instance, a lot of people are teleworking now. Yesterday, I spent like maybe 5 hours sitting down, and I noticed that my legs were swollen from sitting down excessively. So it was like that was a moment where I didn't pause. I should have like took 30-minute breaks, walked around the house, because usually I'm on my feet all day. I usually have, engagements. I'm at different locations, but yesterday was unique. I was sitting at home for a couple of hours working on, documents, etc., and that's how my body responded. So this, if you just pause and think about the acronym that we talked about earlier, before doing things, before eating, and responding to stress, you'll notice a huge difference in everything. So I do have a challenge. I love takeaways, so that you can practice what we discussed today in our mindful exercise. So this is your 7-day longevity challenge, and you only have to do one thing. So choose one behavior for the next 7 days. And one thing that I notice a lot of times that happens is that people add too much to their life and then they get overwhelmed. So just choose one thing. It could be drinking more water each day. Like literally, if you're only drinking 1 cup of water a day, don't say I'm drinking 8 cups because you'll just be in the bathroom. Add a cup and then gradually add a cup until your body gets used to it. Take 5 minutes before eating to pause, breathe, meditate, and be like, okay, what am I choosing? Adding more veggies to your meals to make it colorful, drinking more water, small sips make a big impact. So throughout the day, taking a 30-minute walk throughout the day, going to bed 30 minutes earlier. It's hard to go from sleeping 4 hours a night to 8 hours a night. You already had like a long list of things on your schedule. So just adding maybe 15 minutes a day, calling someone you love, because connection is a big part of managing stress, eating more slowly and chewing your food, and then trying a new plant food, So when I became plant-based, I realized there was so much food that I was missing out on. So many different fruits and vegetables that I've never tried that I fell in love with. And one of them was a yellow kiwi. Has anybody tried yellow kiwi before? Yellow kiwi. Yeah, it's a lot sweeter than the green one. I love it. Absolutely love it. And then, of course, stop eating 3 hours before bed. And this is just a little quote, just to take home with you that your future self is being supported by the decisions you make today. So not through perfection or not through a trend, not through the newest diet trend. It's through consistent, intentional choices. So this is just remembering the acronym pause. Just make sure to pause long enough so you hear what your body's telling you, because our body's always communicating with us. A lot of times when my clients say, I'm so sad, I'm overwhelmed, I was diagnosed with this disease, and I tell them, congratulations, and they look at me like, what do you mean? It's like your body's communicating with you that these changes need to occur, either to manage the disease or in some cases, heal. And then pause long enough to ask what you really need, the soda versus a cup of water, and making choices that nourishes who you are today and who you're becoming. So just pause today, nourish for today, and invest in your longevity, which we discussed that it's more than just living to 100, but the quality of life and how you feel, how you engage with others, and being able to travel and move and just having that freedom. And that's everything that I have today. And I did leave some time for questions because I know that we have about 8 minutes. So if anybody has any questions for me about my journey into juicing, becoming a dietitian, and doing functional medicine, I'm willing to answer any questions. That's it.
Tosin, I'm first.
Okay,
So
yes.
I think I remember how the whole idea of the juice came to be, but
Mhm.
I'm sure people would love to hear that, and I don't fully remember
Yeah.
it anyway.
Yeah, so the whole juicing thing, what happened is that in 20, this was like a long, I think it was like 11 or 12 years ago, I do have a family history of hypertension in my family, and I was diagnosed with hypertension this like in my 20s. And I was someone that worked out, exercised, but when you have that family history, your body's just more sensitive to how how things are functioning. So one of my best friends, she's a pharmacist, and I asked her, I was like, what is the lowest dose medication that I can take? And the whole irony of it was, oh, before I start recommending anything for you, how about you change your diet and start juicing? At that time, juicing wasn't popular. And she said, how about you try plant-based and, cover a plate. So I would start juicing every quarter for 10 days in a row. 10 days in a row, I would juice. Even if you had like a birthday party or an event, if it landed on my 10 days, I was juicing, but I would still show up. And just a year, because I did go to my primary care physician and my OBGYN. They did labs, and I was told that my blood pressure was high, high cholesterol, there was cyst in my ovaries, also iron deficiency anemia, low in the B12. I mean, even at CIM, one of my labs looked like a roller coaster. Also my thyroid hormones, T3, T4, TSH, all out of whack, everything was wrong. And I was exercising, and I thought at the time I was eating healthy. So for this year, before, I was like, I'm gonna give it a year. I'm gonna juice every quarter, and then I'm going to be more plant-based. I was vegan for 11 years, but then I added seafood to my diet because our bodies constantly evolve and our hormones constantly evolve. And I felt like, last year I was like, okay, I think my body needs more, omega-3s, and I wasn't fully getting it from my diet, so that added that. But anyways, we'll go into that later. So with the juicing, started juicing, and then a year later, I went to my doctor for my annual, and they did some labs, and they were like, "What did you do?" They were like, "No longer hypertensive. Iron is great. You no longer have high cholesterol." They did the scans, no longer had cysts in the ovaries. They were like, "What did you do?" And I told the lady, I was like, "Oh, it was plant-based. I was juicing quarterly, da 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 da." So that's how I started juicing, and people started noticing changes in my energy, my skin, like how it looked. So they're like, "What are you doing?" And I would carry these mason jars with me, my juice. And so people like, "Can you juice for me?" And I was like, no, because I didn't want to start a business. I grew up in entrepreneurship, and I like, nah, that's not me. So then I started juicing and then it became a business. But the thing about, making medical claims is that, people in the medical field, because I would tell people, this helped me with this. And, people would look me up on LinkedIn because my first doctorate was it was a PhD and it wasn't even in dietetics. It was more in like healthcare management and medication errors and all that. It was more like on the management side of healthcare. So people would look me up, they would look at my publications and be like, you can't make these claims about beets and these juices you're making because you're a doctor of philosophy, you're not a clinician. So I went back to school because I was like, no, there has to be a science to this thing. So I went back to school first. My first school I went to because the naturopathic physician, Dr. Sear, she went to Southwest College of Naturopathic Medicine, which is now Sonora University. That's where I got my Master's of Science in Clinical Nutrition. And that's when I learned about, the herbs. I mean, I learned about a lot of the homeopathic remedies and tinctures and supplementation, but the whole vitamin C study that we did, Dr. Kogan, with, cancer, with the one patient, like all of that. I'm like, no, this stuff is real. So went back to school, went there, got that degree, and then I was like, looked it up. I was like, oh no, there's something even higher I can do. The doctor of clinical nutrition and even like functional nutrition, functional medicine. So I went ahead. I was like, no, I need to do this because people need to know, people want to see evidence-based science. So they want to see that this is actually studied and it works. And to believe, people don't believe in like the testimonies you give, they believe in the data. Some people are just data driven. So I went back and now the just all the education I learned from going back to school. That's why I have 14 flavors of juices. Because people are like, you have so many flavors. I'm like, yes, each juice is carefully curated for functionality. So now when I have like my juice tastings or if I have my juice bars, I talk about the juices. And I'm gonna go into like, we still have like 2 minutes. I'm gonna go into these juices. So I have a vitamin C juice because I learned about all the benefits of vitamin C. And I was even taking notes as Dr. Kogan was talking about the vitamin D supplementation with the, 'cause I was like, I need to know this stuff because this, when I talk about this, but I have a vitamin C juice, which is a combination of orange, ginger, it has red apple, and it has carrot. I have a beet juice, which is a combination of apple, beets, carrots, and ginger. And my clients actually have tried this juice and they're like, my blood pressure is lower now. And they're like, what is the physiology behind this? And then I explain that beets has these nitric gases that expands your arterioles. So it allows more blood to flow, which makes the blood pressure low systolic by 5 mmHg within 6 hours. When people hear this, they're like, at conferences, you have the MDs, the NPs, the pharmacists. They're like, okay, you're onto something. And they're like, do you have scholarly articles? I said, yes. If you go on PubMed, and I start referencing all these articles, and they're like, wow. So then that's, how that, became a thing. And then I also have a juice, it's called a Milky Way. A lot of people, especially in my, that are of people that are heavily melanated like me, we need more vitamin D in order in comparison to people that have less melanin. So I created a juice, but a lot of us are lactose intolerant. So created a juice called Milky Way. It doesn't have any milk in it, but it's a combination of sweet potatoes, cinnamon root, and red apple and pear. So it's like people are like, we can't make those medical claims. Boom. This article, NIH, boom, 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 boom. Like it's like now people they believe in the integrative approach to things because now it's like this is what I studied, this is what I learned, about the different juices and what it does for the body. Because the first thing people want to say is, oh, it's going to spike your blood sugar. Like, no, if you cured it properly. So some diabetics will come to me like, what juice can I use? So I have a juice called Berry Nice, combination of blueberry, blackberry, raspberry, celery, and I think and strawberry. And there's articles that show that berries are low on the glycemic index. Not only is this going to help regulate blood sugar levels, it also helps to slow down the onset of any type of neurodegenerative diseases because hypertension, diabetes are cousins. Usually one or the other. You'll see one person will have it one year and it's like, so I know I'm going on and on about it, but this is how I started juicing and why I furthered my education because I wanted more people to nourish heal, thrive. That's the motto of my business because people felt like, they they were going to be stuck taking a medication for the rest of their life. But yes, you're taking a medication for the rest of your life, but what are you doing to manage these symptoms? It's like, you can juice, eat more plant-based diet. So that's how, the juices developed and, became a whole brand because not only was it I was making these juices, they're like, oh, a dietitian is making them and she's curating each flavor based on a condition. So oh, I see someone asked me the juicer. Okay, so I have my juicer. There's a company that I use that they make juices. They make like the cold press juices for people. Oh gosh, what's the name of this company here? I have it. I'm gonna put it in the chat. So because now I get my bottles from Captiva, but you can also get like a cold press juicer on Amazon. It's called Nama, a Nama juicer. Those are like one of like the best juicers, like it's cold press because there's this whole debate on masticating juicer, cold press juicer. Okay, now I'll explain it. The whole like Breville juicer, most of them are the masticating juicer. They add heat to it. So yes, it does like kill off some of the nutrients, but it still has the nutrients from the juice. But to get the most out of your juice, is to use a cold press juicer. So the Nama juicer, I highly recommend. So the company that I got my juicer that I use for my business is called Good Nature. So they build juicers for people like that own juice businesses. So it's called Good Nature, GOODNATURE, one word, Good Nature. And you'll see many juicers on there if you want to start juicing in bulk, because those juicers make like 20 gallons an hour. Because I have to juice at a high level. So it's like, but if you're trying to just juice for yourself, I love Nama. And if you're trying to budget, I would say cold press Breville juicer. Those are like really good juicers. And then, another thing you can do, so because I'm also about the environment, there's a lot of local farmers that they're looking for fertilizer. So there's a local farmer because I'm at a farmer's market on Sundays in Northeast DC, and I give the pulp of my the fibers that I extract to the farmers, and they use it for their soil. Because I don't believe in waste. Like I like recycle. Yes, I'm one of those people. So. I know one of those, people are like, oh, when I tell them, they're like, oh, you're one of those. Because I used to like bake, look for recipes, but I'm like, I have so much pulp. Like, what am I going to do with all this? You're not going to throw it in the trash, so the farmer's always looking for ways to fertilize their soil.
You were like this all the way back. I remember you dragged us to your church, and kids were small. I think they were like maybe three,
Yeah.
5.
Yes, I
Kids, kids,
remember.
kids had such a good time.
Yes, yes, yes. But now I always say that like CIM, that was the beginning of my introduction to
Oh,
naturopathic medicine, to holistic integrative medicine. And that's why when I went to PA school, I wasn't satisfied. I know Dr. Kogan with my million degrees. I was not satisfied in PA school because I'm like, no, you're just talking about reading labs and pharmacology and saying, okay, that's it, get out my
yeah,
face. I'm like, we
yeah,
didn't learn anything that we're learning in the CIM. So I was like, no, I'm going back to school. So
good. That's good.
yes, yes,
Well, it's wonderful to have you here. Those of you, my patients, stay. We're just going to end the recording here.
yes, yes.
Thank you so much.